Good afternoon. I'm very happy to open the second session of the day, and which will be focused on the topic of practical methods for dryland afforestation and landscape restoration. We're going to have four presentations and a few words about this topic. Keren Kayemeth LeIsrael-Jewish Jewish National Fund has been developing dryland afforestation and landscape restoration projects for decades, following adaptive management and ongoing research activity. In this session, we will present selected case studies of dryland afforestation and landscape restoration projects from semi-arid and arid southern Israel, which represent both small and large-scale projects involving ecological, social, and economic benefits. Our first speaker will be Mr. Itzhack Moshe. Itzhack Moshe, Itzik, was responsible for 35 years in the southern region of Israel at KKL-JNF for soil conservation and afforestation projects. Itzik was involved in a wide range of international missions representing KKL-JNF and the State of Israel in several World Summit meetings, international consulting missions, and international research and developing committees. Itzik, the stage is yours.
I would like to share with you the efforts done by Keren Kayemeth Israel in rehabilitating degraded areas of the Negev through water harvesting and afforestation. The Negev, which is located in the southern part of the country, is considered as an arid, semi-arid zone. I am referring mainly to the north part of the Negev, which is not a true desert. There are no desertification processes in deserts. I will refer to desertification processes in the area where rainfall amount is between 150 to 250 millimeters per year, the frontier between the Mediterranean Sea and the desert. As we can see in the picture, in the slide, you can clearly see desertification processes. Desertification is defined as land degradation, mismanagement of the land, improper land cultivation from the upper part of the slope to the lower part of the slope, overgrazing, clear cut of vegetation is responsible for creation of this badland area, losing the A horizon. You can see areas where we lost our A horizon, there is no germination of cereals. So through the presentation, I will talk about desertification processes and causes. I will talk about ancient agriculture in the Negev, which is a model for us for proper land rehabilitation. I will talk about rehabilitation efforts and a little bit about applied research. And then I will talk about ecosystem services which are provided by the rehabilitated areas. So let's start with desertification processes. Overgrazing, heavy grazing pressure of goats, sheep, camels is responsible for creating bare soil, and the first rains hit bare soil, bare land, and the result is soil erosion. Neglect of water harvesting structure from the last decades or even ancient structures which are in the north part of the Negev are leading to soil erosion. If we look at our gullies, they reflect the health of the slopes of the watershed. We can see here a badland area, a gully which is developed very close to the crest line. Clear cut of vegetation, improper land cultivation, and heavy grazing is responsible for this erosion processes through desertification processes in areas where rainfall amount is 250 millimeters. These are not natural, these are human impacts on the land. If we are talking about gully erosion, you can see as a result of bank erosion, there is exposure of the roots of one of the acacia, native acacia trees which were left in the area. With time, if we don't do anything, the tree will collapse. Just to, what is the meaning of gully head development? The stream, the flow is from the upper part of the picture to the lower part. It is very clear to see the difference in vegetative cover between the lower part of the gully head. This is called gully head. And you can see the rich vegetative cover of the upper part. With time, there is a headward erosion. The gully expand upwards, and we will lose vegetation and soil, of course. These degradation processes are long-term processes. We have a benchmark. These are ancient water cisterns. These are the roof of a buried water cistern. It is buried into the ground, and these are ceramic pipes which drained runoff water into the buried cistern. If you look around, you can see exposed water cistern which tell us that we lost few meters of soil over 1,500 centuries, 1,500 years. And of course, this process of desertification is active, and each year, each flood, we lose soil, we lose vegetation. As I said in the beginning, the ancient agriculture which was practiced in the Negev serves for us as a model for proper land management. This is one of 6 ancient towns which was found in the Negev. People started to settle in the Negev during the Iron Age, about 3,000 years ago. This is a picture of one of 3 churches found in the town of Shifta. The area, in this area, rainfall amount is about 100 millimeters of rain, but the people were harvesting runoff water from roofs, from roads, and even from the valleys outside the town, and they drained the water and stored it in open reservoirs or in buried cisterns. They cultivate the land in what is called runoff farming. They cultivated just the valleys. You can see here stone terraces in the valleys, which collected flood water from the slopes. They even constructed huge dams in the valleys, in the upper part, in the north part of the Negev, in the Shikma, or in Yatir, dry riverbeds. Actually, this system, which was practiced by people, is a system that I studied from Eli, that shrubs are collecting runoff water, and Eli showed it in his presentation. We can see here this Anabasis articulata, the earthen mounds below the shrubs which collect resources. So it's a kind of nature-based solution in ancient time, and we try to apply it to modern time with modern knowledge and technology. So if we are talking about rehabilitation based on water harvesting, we are collecting runoff water in the valleys in limans. Liman is a small grove of trees. This is an earthen dam. This is a spillway, just to let the surplus amount of water to flow without any damage. And water harvesting is not just water. We see that after a few weeks, 2-3 weeks, this is the only green area in the whole region. Water harvesting is also a system to stabilize gully heads, active gully heads. When we have small watersheds of few decades, of few hectares, we can construct limans or dams and store the water behind, and that way we can stabilize the gully head. This is the situation of the gully head in the year 2005, and this is the liman which is constructed in the year 2005. These are new seedlings. 5 years later, this is an air photo. The gully head is in the same place, and this is the liman which was planted in 2005. And these are the series of dams which was constructed in the upper part of the valley. Five years later, the gully head is in the same place, the trees are growing, and 11 years later, the gully head is in the same place, the trees are growing, and the area is recovered and has much more vegetation than it has before because we control grazing, and we have studied from Eli Argaman that after about 10 years, the impact of the earthworks is reducing and vegetative cover is coming back again. Where we have larger watersheds, we need to stabilize the gully heads by stone or concrete systems, and in this system we also store water. On slopes, we built earthen contour terraces. This is the green belt around the town of Meitar. You see these green dots here? These are young seedlings. For example, this is 2 years acacia tree. You can see here the flood line, and here. And in case we have several floods per year, we can supply few meter cubes of water per each tree. Eli gave us in the first station numbers about 6, 8, and even sometimes more cubic meter per year per tree. These are 15 years old acacia trees, and again, water consists organic material, nutrients, seeds, and germination occur just in the flooded area. And as we know, in Israel, climatological forecast models are forecasting reduction in rain amount, but increase in rain intensity. And we think that these systems can be part of the system to adapt to climate change, control floods in severe high-intensity storms, and in drought years, make sure that trees and herbaceous natural vegetation can grow. This is the green belt of the town of Meitar, and within the town you can see several structures. This is one of the several structures that we have constructed to stabilize gully heads and store water behind. So we don't want to stop floods, but we just regulate. We reduce the peak discharge of floods. And actually, the town of Meitar doesn't suffer of floods where it is located in the valley, but most of the water is retained on the slopes. This is another structure, stone check dam, similar to what our forefathers did 1,000 years ago. We are trying not to reinvent the wheel, just to study from what is in the ground. We have mistakes, we have gaps of knowledge. For example, there is piping through the embankment, and we found that if we have sodic soils, there is holes in the embankment, and we lose the soil, we lose the embankment. In some cases, there is overtopping above the embankment. You can see here the flood line inside the liman. So in severe storms, there is overtopping. So we need to fit the size of the spillway to the specific discharge that will occur during extreme events. So About 35 years ago, we installed long-term ecological research stations. I will just show you some of the aspects. This is a liman, and this is a partial flume, a flume which will tell us the discharge and the volume of the flood water during a storm. We also monitor the rain. In that way, we can know. So if we measure, if we monitor the system for many years, we can see that there is a spatial variation and long-term variation. For example, there are years that we can store up to 3,000 millimeters of rain. I'm speaking about equivalent to rain, storing water which is equivalent to 3,000 millimeters, while other years there are no floods. That gives us the importance of long term. So by that way we can adapt the right species to the specific locations. Very important. Long-term monitoring sometimes is boring, but it is very important. This is the way how we are constructing nowadays spillways according to the results from the long-term ecological research. So if we are talking about ecosystem services of the rehabilitated areas, for example, here is the town of Omer, not far from Beersheba. By constructing these structures, even before planting, during October 2004, Pavlo measured, where is Pavlo? Measured in his house in Beersheba 30 millimeters of rain, but here we had huge floods, but in the treated area, we have, for example, where the watershed size is 1.3 square kilometers, the maximum discharge was 4 meter cubic per second. In non-treated area, where the watershed size is 1/10 of the treated area, we have twice discharge. And that means that we can regulate the floods. We don't want to stop the floods, but we can reduce the discharge and the damages caused by the floods. These afforested areas, and as people talked before, this is not a dense forest, but they are used by the public as a recreation site, very important. Honey production have also economic effect. Improve pasture in areas where we are storing the water. Shade for livestock, as well as for wildlife, like you see here, the small gazelle lying in the shade of a young Ficamorus tree. And green belt, as Gilad told us in the morning, we are creating green belts around small communities, around Beersheba, which is the capital of the Negev, with bike routes, with campgrounds, with reconstruction of ancient areas. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Itzhack. Question, anyone?
As much as we know better, we will need less maintenance. I mean, harvesting of runoff is a challenge because you have to deal in one hand with drought years where there is no enough water, enough runoff. So in these dry years, trees or vegetation, herbaceous vegetation or shrubs will die. On the other hand, when you have peak discharges, you need to deal with these maximum discharges. So as I said, as you know better, you can adapt yourself to this system. Now, with time, there is a need for less maintenance because as you have more vegetative cover, you'll have lower amount of erosion, sedimentation, and lower peak discharges. Another component is working with community. All these areas were heavily grazed before. So you have to know how to deal with the people which are living in the area. In many cases, they are our employees. In many cases, sometimes they are even our guards looking after the trees. And in case of drought, sometimes you need to change, to plant again. But in the first years, maintenance is very important. You have to irrigate for the first 3-4 years. These are the main components, I think.
Thank you. Okay.
The intensive earthworks that you do, the terracing, doesn't it totally destroy the surface microbiota for at least a few years? Doesn't it do kind of a reset to the system?
I don't know if you have listened to the previous session. The tall guy, Eli, told us that after 8 to 9 years, 10 years, there is a recovery of the area where we have make all these earthworks. And earthworks here, I can say it's about 5% of the land, more or less. It's not the whole area. I mean, the distances between the contour lines can be 10 up to 25 meters, depend on the location. Most of the area is not touched by tractors. And Eli can tell us about recovery of vegetation or soil crust.
Okay, I would like to encourage you to join us to the field trip on Wednesday. We're going to see a few of the photos that Itzhack just showed us. And thank you, Itzhack. Now Okay, now the next presentation will be taken by Amit Eliyahu. Amit Eliyahu is the director of Pharaohs in the Desert, an agricultural development program in Turkana, Kenya. On behalf of the Arava Institute for Environmental Studies, Amit is a geologist and an environmentalist with experience in community development project management and mineral exploration work from remote field camps on grass roots projects with rural communities. Amit currently undertaking his PhD studies in economics geology at Ben-Gurion University. Please.
Thank you. So, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you what we do in Turkana, Kenya. So my name is Amit. I will start introducing to you the physical and cultural environments and as we experience them in Turkana. And I will talk about Pharaohs in the Desert, our agricultural development project. It's been running on the ground for more than 10 years now. And then Asaf Karavani, raise your hand. He will talk about watershed management methods that were developed in Israel, and also mainly on the way we adapted in Turkana and build capacity there with the Turkana people. Here, this is our on the bottom left. This is where we do the training. This is our pilot for runoff water harvesting. And here you can see a rural community that is disconnected from anything, far away from everything. The farmers are graduates of our program, and they're doing well for themselves. Farming is also a way of living for them now, and they are free to look around and see the degraded land around them and start caring for it. Asaf will say more about that. So we operate in Turkana. We are located northwestern corner of Kenya, bordering with Uganda, South Sudan, and Ethiopia. We focus mainly on the northern part of Turkana, but we are expanding towards the center and the south. We are located along the eastern flank of the Great East African Rift, which means the land is there's a lot of volcanic rocks there, and because of the faulting, we have rocky ridges and many basins in between. The basins and the water of Lake Turkana are rich with alkali elements. The pH of the water and the soil that we have to deal with is quite high, between 8 to 9. Salinity is a medium level, and we are able to deal with that. It's the largest county and least developed. And you can see we are spreading. These are all locations of our graduates. We reached about 70 localities, and we're maintaining agriculture in over 50 now. And the data is collected from our central farm. You can see that not much seasonal variations in terms of temperature. Humidity is also between 50 and 60% throughout the year. Temperatures 20 to 40 degrees throughout the year. We do have two rainy seasons, March to May, and around October. But you should know that whatever it changes quite a lot. Depends where you are. It's still 70,000 square kilometer. The area is quite large, and as we mentioned, there are ranges and basins. So precipitation is between 50 to 400 millimeter a year, depends where you are. But when the rain comes, it can come in a few days and it's gone. Yeah, it's just torrential rain, and it's all lost to runoff, or much of it is lost to runoff. So we rely mainly on underground water, and what we do see in terms of farming, the tough months are January to April, where the winds are strong, the rain can be hard, and we have to deal with floods. The better months are from May to December. It's very important also for us. So the damages we need to deal with are really from floods and winds. Again, having to look into the environment and manage the environment better, which is what we're trying to do now together with KKL. So the Turkana people, they are Nilotic, ethnically they are Nilotic pastoralists. Most of you may have not heard of the Turkana, but heard of the Maasai. They are of the same ethnical lineage. So for them, they grow mainly goats, also sheep, cattle, camels, donkeys. And for them, the animals are not just for food. They're part of the family and clan economy, but it's also a very strong cultural aspect. They would look down at fishermen, they would look down at farmers, like far down. Don't think it's close, they're far down. But they can no longer live according to their traditional way of life, many of them. We see increasing the droughts, and also the length of the droughts increase, which is making it more difficult for them to cope with. There are thousands of years of pastoralism in the area, but when the droughts becoming more frequent and longer, it's their economy collapse. You can see here on severe droughts, more than 60% of the livestock is dead. However, of course, it doesn't come across evenly. A strong clan like this one, and the child is part of that clan, and also this warrior, they would get a hold of that water hole, and they will not let anyone come near it, and they will survive the drought, maybe with a 10% loss of their livestock. However, more marginalized members of the Turkana people, marginalized people of the clan or other clans, they would lose the entire live stock, and they would either arm themselves and raid, which is again common practice, to restock, or they will have to seek other means of livelihood. So we talked about the increasing frequency of drought and duration of the drought. Steep growth of the population. We're looking at about, in 30 years, about 5.5 times the population increase, compared with Kenya as a whole, which is about 3.5 in 30 years. Healthcare is better, so the death of children under 1 and under 5 halved in the last 30 years. And we're looking at vaccination levels. They are almost as high as in the entire Kenya. Over 90% vaccination on some of the key vaccines. Education is still a problem. More than about 80% of the population is not educated at all, in formal education, and maybe 3.6%, this is according to 2014, may reach beyond primary school. This is an important part of the story. In red, different studies would claim what is the land capacity to provide for livestock. And so goats, for example, estimation was 1.2 million goats at any time, and we're looking at 5 million goats really living on the ground, which is about a fifth of the goats population of Kenya as a whole. So the conclusion that is Turkana is heavily stocked, and that's why when the hard times come, the entire system collapses. And they become, as the land degraded due to overgrazing, which is clear everywhere you go. You can see a dependency on aid food, migration to urban areas, increasing tribal conflict and population in transition, looking for something else to do, different things. So for some, it's a complementary activity, farming. For others, it would be a totally alternative way of life. Skip that. There are many reasons. There were few attempts before and failed, but this is the most important thing, the old perception. In 2012, when I met with government officials from the Ministry of Agriculture, Irrigation, Water, they were all busy telling me that it's impossible to do agriculture in Turkana. The environment is too harsh. The people, the gap between herders and farmers, the cultural gap is too big, and there's no infrastructure. So obviously you cannot do anything. And they actually presented papers and studies to show me that it's impossible to do. So when we started in 2012, there was another project starting by the Red Cross, and it was just a photo opportunity. For 6 months, they ran 5 sites. They invested in the project more than we've invested in years. In one go, they took photos, had an article in the paper saying there's no more hunger in Turkana, and that's it. They pulled out 2 of the agronomists, and the site collapsed. We tried to assist them, but it was their scope was too big for us then to take over. Another project more recently, 2018, it went on the ground. There was just installation of equipment, very expensive, but no training and no follow-up, no access to agricultural inputs, and no follow-up by agronomists to assist the new farmers. No farmers in the world can succeed under such conditions, doesn't matter if they're Israel, Turkana, Arizona. So our model, we look into food production wherever we have graduates and there's farming starting, and those who are close to markets, we're looking into commercial agriculture, focusing on commercial agriculture, and it's clear to us that all of these communities are much stronger. It's contribute to the resilience of these communities. We establish a research and training demonstration farm. We run 5 months courses, and those who want to come to us stay on board and live at our central farm. In the beginning, we had to pay them. It was obvious for us that we have to give them some money so the family behind can support itself. Now we are getting a fee. Everyone has to give 2 goats, and the list of interested Turkana to join these courses is very long. We already trained our staff, and we don't rely anymore on Israelis that we used to send. We have a local operation manager and teachers, agronomists. A key feature you have to remember is this ongoing assistance on the ground. Without it, everyone would fail. We're supporting farming clusters. They are stronger together. We support and we established together with our graduates a farmers association, and now we focused on markets and access to credit. We managed to show that it is possible to adapt our cultural methods and provide sustained self-subsistence and commercial agriculture. It must have appropriate training and follow-up and guidance in their fields. We can see improvement in the nutrition and the resilience of these communities. We are now facing a severe drought. It's been going on for 1.5 years, and we are really desperate for rains to come in November. It's coming sporadically, and the government is providing food in Turkana, but our farming communities, they are strong. They have the water from the boreholes. They're producing their own food, and now not only they are supporting themselves, they're also supporting quite a big number of pastoralists that are coming closer to them and enjoying whatever they can produce and the water they have. So here's the same community in Kopotia when the first farmers graduated from the program, more farmers and better organized community, becoming farming community. And here we are now introducing concepts of watershed management. So I'll just go quickly through the slides of our central farm. Paulina, she's a strong farmer. Ladies are making the best farmers. They are committed. They have a family to care for, and they are more reliable. And she's now caring for the site we developed with KKL, the terraces site. We introduced teaching farming in the schools. We brought dates to Turkana from the Arava. Here's our central training facility. We do a lot of research there. Here is the site, part of it. It's bigger, 7 hectares, with 700 trees. We're catching runoff water from a very gently sloping area. Skip through these. This is the things we do in our training facility. We also train in net houses. I'm sorry. We had to teach them how to cook. Their diet was relatively very poor, based on meat, milk, blood, and some of the things that they forage, and some of the things like bags of corn, flour. Yep. But now we're introducing quite a lot of different plants for them, and they need to know that it's tasty. We're going on literacy. Turkana is an oral language. We put it into writing, and we teach them how to read their own language, and then they can take the manuals and do the follow-ups and maintain the equipment and do better work as farmers. We established a cooperative operating since 2014. It incorporated since 2020. We're finishing on the 9th of December the 18th course. In the beginning we had relatively 62% success in the first 6 years, and the success rate is increasing as we learn how to do this better. And also as the clusters are more available, so they are helping themselves. We are spread quite thin, and we're trying to grow our capacity. We teach also in net houses. Just want to show you this image. You can see this area is fenced. This is where our date plantation is. And in the background, you can see the goats just roaming. Hundreds of goats who just go around, won't let the vegetation grow. They will eat anything very quickly. So we're trying to introduce grazing management. Skipping. These are our graduates in their fields, doing well. These are everything that we grow. We first try growing it in our central farm, and when we understand what methods are needed to grow the different products, we can identify the locations where they can be grown, and with which methods and how to adjust it best. So it's quite a big variety from nothing. Yep. Skip. And like I said, we introduce this training in the schools. I'll let Asaf take over from here. But again, the key idea is to understand that we're looking at small areas. Okay, we heard before about large Negev and big operations by KKL. We're focused on this farming and the new emerging farming communities, and we're looking into helping them manage the degraded land around them. Thank you.
I would like to present Asaf. Asaf Karavani is the director of Forest Management Department of KKL-JNF. The department's responsibility consists of three major pillars. Overseeing forest management on a national level, the National Forest Inventory and Monitoring System, and the Professional Training SEM. Please.
Yes, so thank you, Gil. We're part of the same presentation. Yeah, that's the second half, the presentation on Turkana, on the project. I have a hard task because I had some spoilers coming from the presentation of Itzhack Moshe, but I'm just trying to build it over what Itzhack was presenting. Before I start talking about the methods developed in Israel and the way we adopt and implement them in those communities in Kenya, I would just say that I'm working for Keren, Kayemeth, LeIsrael, the Jewish National Fund, which has recently won the title of being the organization with the longest name in the world. So I will just refer to it as KKL, which is how we pronounce it, the acronyms we pronounce in Hebrew. KKL was founded in 1901 with the mission of facilitating the settlement of people in the land of Israel. And as you can see, from the environmental conditions, it was quite a hard task. The land was highly degraded, overgrazed, and almost no trees were seen in the scenery. And nowadays, the organization KKL is the Acting Forest Service of Israel. During the years, as Itzhack was showing in his presentation, KKL was focusing on one hand on practical and hands-on management on the land, a lot of afforestation projects, a lot of trial and error, and on the other end, on the research, forest management that is based on research and development, and I call them the power couple. And from here, I'm going to show what was developed throughout the years. So from this research and trial and error, we've developed methods to harvest rainwater on a watershed basis. As Itzhack was showing in his presentation, you can see here those methods, those soil engineering methods that are used to actually retain the rainwater, make them stop and percolate in the soil instead of flooding and running fast through the area. That is helping in its way to have a better soil moisture and a higher depth of water in the soil, which helps increase the primary productivity and the capacity of the land to hold vegetation, actually, and start the rehabilitation processes. If we take a closer look, we can see the Lyman systems, which Itzhack was talking about. In the streams, we can see the water harvesting in contour lines, those what we call shichim, and some stone terraces and other methods that were developed throughout the years. As we said, we're standing on the shoulders of giants, and Itzhack is one of them, and all those knowledge that was developed throughout the last decades. Some examples of land just after the implementation of the soil engineering on a landscape level, and this is 10 years later, and you can see the areas here, not that sharp, but they are still degraded areas. So, coming back to the project design, we were thinking on a larger scope, on let's say with the literate words, we were trying to improve the ecosystem services that the land can supply the new farmers in those communities that we're working with in Turkana, Kenya. And so we were trying to take those methods that were developed in Israel, those rainwater harvesting methods, and adapt them into the local condition and environment, working together with the local communities that want to partner with us in order to rehabilitate those agro-silvopastoral systems that are now made from agriculture, silviculture, which is trees, and pastoralism. And talking about the project goals after talking about the design. So the goals we've set were to prevent land degradation and soil erosion, like you saw in Amit's presentation. Soil is highly degraded, overgrazed. Increase the soil humidity and recharge of groundwater aquifers. So first of all, the groundwater aquifers are the water the communities use to drink and to irrigate their agriculture, so it's a must in order to sustain agriculture. And also the soil humidity for the places we wanted the agro-silvopastoral system to be rehabilitated. The increased production of pasture and other animal feed for the communities that are originally pastoralists. Increase and diversify the food production, so allowing them to grow different vegetables, fruits from trees, and other specific agricultural products that could be introduced after introducing those water harvesting methods. Improving the soil quality by the decomposition of the organic matter, first of all by manure when planting the trees, etc., but after this whole system is recharging and decomposing organic matter and enriching the soil and the primary productivity potential, and contributing to the environmental education and awareness of the people, which is something that it's a big element in this project that is focusing on those communities that are in transition between being pastoralists and agriculturalists. It's not always a well-known fact that you can take care of the environment around you and you will profit from that on a direct revenues that you can get from the ground, not because you want to contribute to the greatness and goodness of the world, but because you want to survive and improve the way you can do it in your harsh environment. And I would say also the faith of the people, as Amit showed, that there were a lot of projects that didn't succeed, and people do need to see good examples of those projects in order to have faith in their own ability to change their own surrounding. And last but not least, capacity building. Throughout the whole project, the idea was not to come and build and transfer like we saw in other projects, but the management is in the hands of the community. So they are the ones who asked for it. They are the ones who you will see later even didn't design and build it by their own hands later when we will see. But the knowledge is being transferred, and the community is after being able to manage it by themselves and to propagate and create more areas and lands like that. That's the project design and goals. And I'll go now through the 3 different sites that we've been working on. The first site is in Lobur, where Amit showed that the Pharaohs in the Desert farm is. And the reason to choose this site was because there is a strong, committed community over there that is working for over a decade with Pharaohs in the desert. And we had the ability to close a large area for grazing management. So it's not an easy thing to do when pastoralist people are around, as you see. And that looked like a good choice for more or less an R&D plot, playing safe and choosing a place where we know the community is strong and it could manage it and help it work. So the implementation in Lubur. First, training of the local personnel, transferring of knowledge. Our experts, Gil Siaki and Moti Shriki from the southern region, flew there, trained, were sitting with the people, getting to know the local culture, and started training the local people, eventually designing and serving a 7-hectare area that was suitable for rainwater harvesting, constructing over 80 shirs and one liman. And I think the most important thing is the adaptation of methods that were used. During the project, they encountered several problems. For example, we are used to work with a D6 or a D9 and till the soil, and once they were on ground, so it was impossible to do it with the machinery, and still with also the workers that were working with the machinery, and they found a new way to do it with the tractor tilling and building the shirs, and combine it with the manual labor, which was also first of all it's the adaptation of the methods used in Israel in the local environment, but also it's something that deepened the commitment of the local people to the project. Once they work in it, once they are part of the people that were building it, they are more committed into keeping it, managing it, and the value of it for the community is higher. There were also upgrading the nursery, so now it can support, it's a specific nursery for trees. It can support around 8,000 seedlings, so they're able to propagate seedlings for this project and the next communities, and also for the farmers around that want to diversify their food system and plant new trees and that are cultivated in this nursery. They were preparing before already the compost, the fences, the wood pegs for the serving and the designing of the watershed system. And of course, planting the trees finally, and ongoing training of the elders, promoting the project goals and activities through the local community mobilizers and Pharaohs in the Desert Center that is located there. This is the planting part. Again, you see the whole community is joining in a big feast and strengthening the connection of the community to the project itself. What were the outcomes? So there was a successful outcome of actually now having a successful agro-silvopastoral plot that demonstrating that it is possible to do it. Amit said that he was working with the officials, government officials in Kenya, and they told him it is not possible to do it. So from the design of these 7 hectares, we can now see, you can see the sheikh, the contour-like catchments. You can see the trees that are already here, maybe 1.5 meters tall. Here you can see Moti and Gil and the partners. You see the trees that were planted, 1 or 2 years old trees. Intercropping were introduced between the sheikhs in this area. Fruits, hummus, and yeah, I think the photos is speaking for itself. So this is again the area outside of the fence, and this is the area inside the fence. And you can see the difference in 3 years of primary productivity and the possibilities that it gives to the people in a matter of diversifying their food systems and resources. One of the most important outcomes, those topics of grazeland management, watershed management, harvesting of rainwater, and intercropping, they were all incorporated in the Pharaohs in the Desert training program, which is an agricultural program that now was also incorporating those grazeland management and rainwater harvesting methods in the programs. So the graduates now that are graduating from the Pharaohs in the Desert training program, which are around 15 people every half a year from 5 or 6 different villagers, are now going back to their surrounding communities and talking about what they see and propagate it and disseminate the knowledge that they gained in Pharaohs in the Desert, and that this is how the project can continue being sustainable on its own. The spread is not dependent only on us or only on Pharaohs in the Desert Agricultural Center. And capacity building. So after the project was finished, after this stage of the project was finished, the people themselves, they went out and they surveyed by themselves from the tools and knowledge they got from Gil and Moti, and they went and searched and found a new place and constructed a new liman by their own design, serving and construction. So that is part of that part is showing the capacity building of the people. Second site was a totally different story, a remote site in Kopotia, a semi-nomadic agro-pastoralist community, which is just now in the early stages of its permanent settlement. You can see, you saw the pictures, the spoiler that Amit did before. The farmers' plots are here. This is a river. These are the slopes. Those agricultural plots were suffering from flood damages that came every once in a while from those slopes and destroyed their agricultural plots. And in order to answer this problem and to supply the demand increased their agricultural capacity and supply pasture for their fodder, we decided to pick this area for as the second site of the project. So first of all, increasing the water holding capacity of the community. So we tried to build a concrete tank so we could supply and support a larger and a vast, larger area of agriculture, and also to supply the new trees that we're going to plant in the first few years. The COVID-19 was right in the middle of the project, and that is a great challenge. So all the guiding and design of the water harvesting system was done remotely by Gil and Moti. And this is a huge thing, because the serving and construction of this rainwater harvesting system was done solely by the local people that were trained and did it in the first year in Lobur. And that's another affirmation for the capacity building of the people. So Gil and Moti helped and guided from remote, but they were able to do it, and they did it well during that year by themselves later on. So that's the design from remote. Again, the community built it by themselves, strengthening their connection and their commitment to the site, planting over 500 seedling and taking care of their irrigation. as you can see here. And here we encountered also particular fencing to still enable small management of herds and not to exclude them from the whole area. Outcome, again, so water security, higher water security to ensure the agriculture activity that is just starting in this region. As you see, those shichim, the contour line catchment that are protecting the agricultural plots here down in the valley. An extension of the agricultural plot and another area that was fenced in order to enlarge the way we can put the shichs and the agriculture already taking place. And again, in capacity building in Kopotia, so we saw that the people were only with the remote help of our professionals, they were able to design, to survey, and to construct this system by themselves after they did it the year before over the first site, and they were already asking and wanting now to do the third. They were fencing a third part on the other side of the river, just to make a third rain harvesting water plot. You can see some of the methods applied. Third and last site, totally different site again. That's more or less the market. It's a small town, not the way we see a town, but it's kind of the marketplace with several different communities, which is making it more complex to work in because of land tenures and land rights between different communities, etc. But also it has a high potential. So if one community takes it and it works with this community, other communities would see that it worked and would like to adopt it by themselves. דקה וסיימתי, גיל, 2 דקות. Okay, implementation in Kaikur, again, I think we can skip it. And go straight to the summary. Okay, so the first and maybe most important thing regarding this project is that it was a successful adaptation of the methods and the techniques that were developed in Israel to the local environment, condition, skill of workers and the different agricultural communities that we're working with in northern Turkana. The second thing, capacity building. So instead of building and living, the whole process was about training the people and them being part of the design, implementation, and management of the project and actually leading it. As you see, we saw it was successful since they did it. They did it after the first year by themselves. The second year they did it by themselves. And that leads to the third point, that a small-scale and local management in the hands of the community rather than big outsourced project that is coming. We could have come and build a 1,000 hectare rainwater harvesting system, but no, that's not the system. That's not the method. That's not the right method to do it. Working with the community on small scale, with the community leading it and being able to manage it and slowly propagating and extending. The dissemination through the Pharaohs in the Desert Farm was a critical thing. So now when all the things that I showed you here were part of the training that they get in Pharaohs in the Desert, now the dissemination continues by its own. People go to their villages, they want to do it by themselves. Some of them have the knowledge to do it, and they continue the transmitting the knowledge transfer on and on and on, independently from us. And again, the adoption and exposure of other communities from communities that already did it. I'm finishing. And again, the adoption of environmental management by the communities themselves, not as something that is imposed on them, but their awareness of their environment and their possibility to take control of their surrounding and making their small place more livable And the additional benefit for us is the environmental benefit. Future plans and dreams, extension of the communities, opening other exhibition farm in central Turkana, independent propagation of capacity building, etc., etc., etc. We still have a lot of plans for the future. So thank you, and sorry for exceeding my time a bit. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Asaf, and thank you, Amit. And now I would like to invite Mrs. Himani. Himani? She has almost a decade of experience focusing on applicative research for improved natural resource management. She has contributed to different land management topics such as long-term socio-ecological monitoring, research-based evidence to better manage ecosystems, and developing and applying methods and tools that can help strengthen the management of shared natural resources. She holds a master's degree in forestry from Forest Research Institute, Deir Dam. Please, Himani.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today, I am Himani, and along with my colleague, Mr. Anil Saraswan, we'll be presenting our work from Foundation for Ecological Security VR, and we'll be presenting our work on restoring our commons. So when we talk about commons, commons are community forests, pastures, and water bodies. So this is the overview of the presentation. Firstly, we'll be briefly describing about the dryland land degradation and the status of commons in India, about the organization, our mission and spread of our work, and the key signature of FES, the core model we use in the field, the ecological restoration processes we follow in the field, and the methods and the tools, best practices from the field, and glimpses into impact. Basically, few slides from the impact. So, 68% of the total geographical area of India is constituted by dryland. And dryland contribute 44% of the food grain production, particularly in India, and supports more than 500 million people. And 29% of the India's land mass has already been degraded, and 5.3 billion soils lost annually. And this basically, the extreme temperature and drought kind of phenomena shrinks the farmer's income from 4 to 14%, specifically for the key crops. And due to this climate change features, mostly the rural household dependent on the farm-based livelihood are likely to be affected most. And due to this climate change and all, 44% of the migration is increasing. Also, per capita availability of the land is also decreasing. So, if you talk about commons, commons constitute 1/4 of the total dryland area. And commons, as I already told, commons are community forests, pasture land, and the water bodies. Commons contribute 25% of the geographical area of India, and 350 million peoples in India are directly or indirectly dependent on commons for their social, cultural, and economic benefits. And the study conducted at FES in 2010 suggests that the rural people basically use commons for fuel wood, water, NTFP, and livestock grazing. So in total, the commons are not only the safety net, but also provide foundation for agriculture and the livestock-based production. So after all such benefits, commons are seen as a wasteland and have been declined by 31 to 55% over past 50 years. So in this backdrop, our organization called Foundation for Ecological Security works towards ecological restoration and conservation of the land and water resources, and establishes processes of coordinated human efforts and governance of these resources to achieve these goals. This is our presence. So FES activities are spread across 116 districts in 12 states of India, which covers 11 agroecological zones. And we work with more than 41,000 villages and assist to 12.52 million acres of common land along with the village communities. So these are the key signature of FES. We believe on the socio-ecological system approach and try to bring nature into natural resource management. We use data and tool to establish decision-making processes at the village as well as the community level. We engage local communities and search appropriate solutions and build on their knowledge base. We also help village communities to arrange secure tenure on their wasteland, panchayat land and the forest land. We work with the state government and the local government also to support implementation of their government schemes and we also support government with the tools and tech part. FES has a strong field implementation team which has the people from various backgrounds. We have a strong data analytics, GIS and remote sensing team as well. And we collaborate with various research institutes to improve rigor and validity to the ongoing research which we are doing in the organization. So this is the basic features of the area where we work. We work in environmentally vulnerable regions, basically which faces the wide area of challenges like drought, mining and ravine. People here do the rainfed agriculture where the production system are on edge and this is basically the area where we work is the home of pastoral and the agricultural based communities. The erosion of traditional norms and practices are the major issues, the area where we work. So these are basically the geographies where we work. The first images is from the eastern part of the country. It is from Odisha, where we work with the forest dependent, where we work with the community who are dependent on the forest for the livelihood. The second images is from Rajasthan, the place where I am. So here we work with the agro-pastoral communities where the livestock keeping is the major asset. In the southern part of the country, we work in Andhra Pradesh and Karnataka, the drought-prone area, where the water is the major issues. In the western part of the country, Gujarat, where we work on the ravine system, ravine problem, and agriculture and livestock rearing is the major source of income for in Gujarat. So this is the model this is the core model we call, the model which we use in the field. This is the 3-layered model. We help village communities and train them to basically getting their land rights based on their customary boundary. We help people to empower the local governance and prepare their resource plan. We also help people to getting access to the various government scheme to restore the degraded ecosystem. And this leads to multiplier efforts, so this leads to improvement in the ecological health of the commons as well as to improve the livelihood of the rural communities, specifically for women. So in this core model part, I will be discussing about the ecological restoration processes which we use in the field. So while taking ecological restoration processes, firstly we identify the landscape. We start ecological restoration processes by identifying a contiguous patch of land. It may be a watershed, a small river, or a hill range, or a small cohesive unit. So after identifying the landscape, we identify people living around the landscape. So we understand people, we understand we try to negotiate between the resource rich and resource poor people and try to solve their upstream and downstream habitation issues like boundary, forest fire, sharing of the resources in the conflict management. And basically we provide platform. We provide platform where the village communities, government, various academic institutes collectively come together, discuss their problem and search appropriate solution while sitting and talking to each other and influence the development agenda of that particular region. So after identifying the landscape, understanding the people, we understand particular ecosystem which we wanted to regenerate or restore. So before initiating the work, we do the pilot survey of the area which is to be restored, along with not only for the area which we wanted to restore, we also want to understand the isoclimatic zone of the area, which is basically the undisturbed area. So we understand both kind of area to understand ecological successional trend of the area, what kind of species are present now, what kind of species was present earlier, say for 10 years back, 20 years back, and what are the key aspect or what are the key problems why these species are not occurring now. So we understand all those, and we understand the forest type, floral and faunal conditions, and we understand hydrogeographical conditions over there, demand and water supply, the local agriculture situations, and the human-nature interactions. Human-nature interactions to understand what kind of rules and regulations are there for managing those particular common land which we wanted to restore, like how communities are managing, if not managing. So basically, what are the traditional rules they follow to use those common land, and through this we prepare the detailed ecological profile of the area. And this processes, the all processes is being undertaken with along with the community members. For the restoration processes, we use various tools. So this is one of the tool, composite landscape assessment and restoration tool, which is developed by FES. This is basically a design support tool which provide location specific information in user friendly manner, and it works in the offline mode as well. So it enables village communities to plan and develop estimate of the soil and water conservation measures they want to undertake. So and this basically for this particular, if we are using this kind of app for soil and water conservation measures, so this basically work without a help of any engineer or any technical person. So so the recommendation of the CLAT comes in form of color coded map, which depict the recharge potential of the area, which the results we get by overlaying the layer called lithology, drainage, slope, and the land use and land cover. So if we are standing on this particular land and using those app and want to understand what kind of soil and water conservation structure is to be made on those area, so this give you a color coded map. So where the green color shows the high recharge potential. So based on the high recharge potential, say for contour trenches can be prepared, or the percolation tank can be prepared. If it is a yellow zone, this shows the moderate recharge area. So based on these recommendation, we can LBCD or gully plugs can be prepared, because those work in the moderate recharge area. The red color shows the area for surface storage. So in this in this kind of zones, basically the surface water storage tank or farm pond or well deepening that can be done. The purple color shows the area of a catchment restoration. So basically in this area only the revegetation work or the soil or regeneration work can be undertaken. So this is the tool which we use in the ecological restoration processes, specifically in case of soil and water conservation measures. Another tool is IFMT tool. I'll be briefly describing this tool. Basically, this tool, integrated forest management tool. This tool help through this tool we help various forest department. More than 75 forest department we are helping now to prepare their actionable working plan of the forest area. So apart from CLAT and IFMT, we also use community-based system dynamics. This basically help us to understand the interconnections between the resource system as well as the human and natural systems. This also help us to visualize the long-term changes, and this basically help us to initiate the discussion within the communities around the resources. So now, based on these tools and understanding about the landscape and the particular area, we prepare regeneration plan of that particular patch. So we discuss. So firstly, we have a discussion with the village community member from the both the group, men group and women group, and then map the biophysical factors of the area using manual GIS technique. I'll show you in the next slide what is manual GIS, and we do the species selection based on the species survey of the area. And ecological concerns and the community preferences and the past learning. And then we prepare treatment plan for soil and water conservation measures using CLAT, and then the discuss with the village institution about the implementation and the protection, and the plan goes for approval in the Gram Sabha and the Gram Panchayat. Once the plan approved, then we do the planting and the other and the work, aftercare work, with the help of village communities, and the timely budgeting, implementation, then monitoring and learning from the past experiences or current work. So these are the few, so I'll be showing few best practices which we use in the field during this the revegetation measures. So this is manual GIS. This exercise basically help us to estimate the existing stock as well as the biophysical factors of the area, and also help us to plant right species at the right place. So while preparing manual GIS, we do the recurrences survey of the area and understand what is the terrain, what is the slope, what kind of species are present at the top, what kind of species are present at the middle, what kind of species are present at the bottom. Because if we are planting some species which is found at the top and we are planting at the bottom, it won't survive because the soil requirement is different, water requirement is different. So before initiating the planting, we do this manual GIS exercise to understand which species will be growing at the top, which species will be growing at the bottom and the middle. So I'll be running a bit fast. So these are the 4 golden rules which we use while taking restoration initiative. So proper spacing. In case of forest, we do planting at the closer spacing. If it is a kind of a grazing land or a partial land, the spacing is more. Correct time of planting is also very important if survival is taking into consideration. So just after the rain, once the soil moisture is sufficient in the soil, then we immediately start planting. And the correct method of planting in the image, I just wanted to show one thing, after the planting, when we fill the pit using soil, we should start tapping the soil from the periphery of the pit rather than the center. So the root hair loss are less, and the more survival chances of the plant would be higher. And while taking planting, we should always prefer locally available species which is already present in that area. So this is one of the local species, mahua, which is very important for the rural communities. It is locally threatened species. So availability of the sapling or good quality plant or say for seeds are the major issues while taking the restoration measures. So to solve these issues, we do seed collection along with the village communities. So we prepare seed, we do seed collection, tree seed collection as well as grass seed collection, because grass is also very important if we see the successional trend of the species. So we prepare these kind of seed calendars to build capacities for the rural communities, what kind of species are seeding now and which kind of tree seeds they have to be collected. So yeah. And this is the how to regenerate the grass species. So we use 2 methods specifically. We prepare grass seed pellet. Grass seed pellet is nothing. After collecting the grass seed, we store them into the sack, and while doing just before the rain, we prepare the grass seed pellet, mixing the grass seed into the FIM and the soil, and prepare the seed bowl and sow this seed bowl into the soil. And also do the grass slip planting for restoration of the grassland. Grass slip planting is nothing, plucking of the grass clump from the soil and splitting its slips and sowing into the soil. So this is the effective method if you wanted to regenerate grazing land in particular. These are also various pictorial things which we wanted to highlight. Regeneration through seeding. So we always not believe on the planting of the tree. There are few species which grow well if we do seeding for those species. So we do planting through regeneration through seeding activities as well. protection of wilding, there are few plants which already are present in the sites. So apart from planting, we also do protection of those wilding. Wild plant and we also do protection using the available material at the planting site. Say for here in case of thorny bushes, this basically help us to sapling to be grazed by the local by livestock, or say for wild animal, cheetal or nilgai or something. This is very important. In the planting, we use 1+3 method of planting. What is 1+3? So along with the planted sapling, we always sow 3 seeds on the crescent of the pit. So even though if the plant is not able to survive, there are chances that the 3 small sapling would be surviving if the planting is not surviving. So these all efforts helps to increase the survival of the sapling or the planted plant of in the area. So this is very important. Drenching, this is the very important method which we use in the field, specifically in the dry area. So this is effective for the area where there is a long dry spell after the planting. So it is nothing, submerge the poly bag with plant in the water for 15 to 20 minutes. So it soaks maximum water, and after this we do planting. So even though if there are no rains for 15-20 days, the plant would definitely survive. This is the second is mulching. So mulching we do with the locally available materials, say for grasses and all, or also we use the existing existing poly bag of the planted sapling to reduce the evapotranspiration losses. So I'll be quickly sharing few slides on the impact, like what are the impact we see on the field. So this is the before after images. It was the condition in 1986 and in July 2016 after the restoration efforts. This is the image of 2004 and this is the image in 2017. It is from southern part of the India, Gujarat, Karnataka, and earlier was from Gujarat. Now community members are sharing that now the sloth bear are also coming in this forest after restoration initiative. So whatever the work we do in the field, so to monitor all those changes, we use community-based ecological health monitoring in the field. So we have our 4 sample watershed, which is one is in 2 are in north, one is in south, and one is in the eastern part of the country. So we do frequent monitoring on those watershed, say for 5-year interval, detailed floral, faunal, social and ecological assessments. And we also have 150 annual ecological monitoring sites which we monitor on annual basis to understand like how the ecological situation are changing over time. And for this particular ecological health monitoring, we build a pool cadre of more than 100 people who help us in monitoring those ecological parameters in the field. These are few. So the studies basically help us to build evidences around secure tenure and the community governance in improving ecological outcomes. So the first graph help basically the comparative assessment which we undertake in the field help us to understand that the biomass and biodiversity are better in the community managed area as compared to the area which is not being managed or under the not under the community control. So, and the second image, the second graph is basically we collect more groundwater data from more than 15,000 well before monsoon and after monsoon to understand how the groundwater situation are changing over time. So these results are from one of our sample watershed. The improvement in the vegetative cover and improvement in the water help to improve the faunal assemblage of the watershed area as well. So there were improvement in the bird, reptile, amphibians and butterfly and mammals diversity over time. So these are from one of our watershed which is in the east. So the butterfly assessment, it was undertaken in Angul watershed in Odisha. These kind of assessment basically help us to build awareness around these neglected ecological parameters within the communities. So when the baseline survey was undertaken, we have recorded only 27 butterfly species. But due to the restoration efforts and when the resurvey was undertaken in 2017 and 18, more than 75 butterfly species was recorded from that watershed area. These are some change detection maps, change detection studies which we do with using some satellite imageries followed by the ground truthing. This is basically in terms of income changes. We saw in the field that there is an increase in the average annual household income from $652 to $1,628. This baseline assessment were undertaken in over the period of 4 years. So baseline assessment were undertaken in 2015 and the end term assessment were undertaken in 2019, and lot of the income part was contributed through the MGNRE-GA, agriculture, livestock and the social security schemes. These are few rules which evolve with working with the local communities around the water. Thank you.
Thank you very much. For the last presentation, I would like to invite Shani. Shani Gleitman earned her first degree in animal science, nature conservation, and open space management from the Hebrew University, and her Master of Science in desert studies and ecology from Ben Gurion University. Since 2016, Shani works as an ecologist at the Ecology Department of the Forest Division in KKL. Please, Shani.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I will present the long-term forest management plan for Yatir Forest. Yatir was mentioned several times earlier today. This is the planning committee of this process. So Gil was the director of the planning process, and me and Yael Porat were the supervisors. Arik Rosenfeld and Asaf Kashtan were the planners, and we within the planning committee, we were sitting together with the forester, the forest engineer, the community coordinator, and we try to combine as many people who are familiar, who are involved with the forest in order to create the best plan that we could. Okay, so just a short I'm sorry, I'm a bit excited. So a short background. Afforestation in Israel took place mainly during the 50s and 60s of the previous century on a very large national scale. Methods used for plantation were from the world of classical forestry, timber-oriented afforestation, but today we are focusing mainly on managing the mature forests. And we shifted from focusing on the planted trees to looking at the whole ecosystem and managing the whole ecosystem at different levels. On 2014, the new forest management policy was published in Israel, and it is a shifting point into a more holistic approach, a goal-oriented forest management. The new forest policy also sets a framework for planning the forest in a goal-oriented approach. Okay. So far, we ended up planning 16 forests according to the new to the principles of the new policy. You can see it's a national scale project. Yatir Forest is here in in yellow. It is the southeast forest that we planned, and it was interesting to test the principles of the new policy also at the semi-arid zone in Israel. We have three stages for the planning process. The first stage is the preliminary analysis, in which we try to learn all the different aspects and values of the forest. For example, ecology, ecological values, archaeology, geology, human activity, etc. And we also pay a lot of attention. We try to understand, first, to map the current vegetation formation within the forest, and then to learn forest dynamics at a specific area. And we try to predict the expected vegetation formation in case of no intervention. The second stage of the process is the forest master plan, So we define the forest vision in terms of ecosystem services, and then we create a map of land use designations. So each area within the forest will receive a specific land use designation, and then we move to the third stage, the long-term management plan, in which we define the desired vegetation formation for each polygon within the forest, and we fit the management, we create a management plan so that if the expected vegetation formation in a scenario of no intervention does not fit the desired vegetation formation, we intervene. I will give an example for the connection between the land use designation and the desired vegetation formation. If an area is designated mainly for recreation, so we will prefer usually a dense forest, which is very comfortable for the visitors, shaded area, and in contrast, fuel breaks within the forest will receive different vegetation formation, perhaps much less trees, for example, grazing, etc. So now to Yatir Forest, the first stage of preliminary analysis. I will just summarize this stage. So this is the largest planted forest in Israel. It is located at the semi-arid transition zone. It is part of Israel's afforestation tradition or history. It is important both for local and global research related to dryland afforestation, desertification, and climate change. It is rich in archaeological sites. It attracts visitors around the year. And there are plenty of natural values in the area. For example, mountain gazelles, raptors, which are nesting within the forest or using it as a stopover site, blooming patches, and endangered plant species. It is also an important core and connection at the National Ecological Corridor between the Judean Hills and the Judean Desert. This is the map of the vegetation formations, current vegetation formations. So in light green, you can see the main area of the forest is a pine forest. And in contrast to most of the coniferous forests at the Mediterranean zone of Israel, natural regeneration processes of pine trees, which could be used to maintain forest continuity, are absent in Yatir. It was mentioned also earlier today, and it raised the question of sustainability of this forest. We try to understand forest physiology. So we ran a remote sensing analysis of the physiological status. We used the parameter MSAVI, sorry. I will not get into detail, just to the bottom line, which is that surprisingly, most of the forest area is at a stable condition. And the meaning is that we are not expecting any catastrophe, any collapse of trees in a dramatic scale. Okay, now to the next stage, the forest master plan. We are defining the forest vision and then the land use designations. So forest vision in terms of ecosystem services from two groups, cultural services and regulating services. So the highlights of the forest is the preserving and exposing Israel's afforestation heritage, maintaining the forest's role both for local and global research, the important role for recreation, which will become more and more important in the future with population growth, preserving archaeological values, human heritage, and protecting natural values. Regulating services within the forest are mainly local climate regulation, carbon fixation, and runoff regulation. And there are two management principles that are derived from this forest vision. The first one is that we do want to preserve the mature continuous pine forest, even though there are no natural regeneration processes, and therefore we will require to implement and to gradually replant patches within the forest. And the second principle was to preserve the native dwarf shrubland patches. There were more principles, but this is the highlights. Land use designation map, you can see here, it's one of the main products of this plan. And each color represents a different land use designation. So you can see clearly that most of the forest is yellow. Yellow is the landscape and heritage values, the area that is designated to maintain and the landscape values and heritage values. In red, you can see a net of fuel breaks all around the forest. In pink, you can see recreation areas. In blue, plots of research plots, sorry. What do we have here? We didn't, okay. So in orange, community forests, which are small patches of the forests around the local villages. Natural assets in light green and multiple use areas in dark green. Multiple use is the areas that we usually prefer to leave for natural processes, if possible, and it is in less priority for intervention. We also create 3 thematic master plans, so we get into more details about each of these 3 topics, fire prevention, recreation, and special habitat and natural assets. And now to the third stage, the long-term management plan, and I will just mention also here the highlights, the main decisions. This is the desired vegetation formation. So you can see also here in light green, most of the area is supposed to remain a pine forest in correlation with the forest vision. But as we said, in order to preserve it as a pine forest, we do have to interfere. We will test gradually different methods of replanting within the coniferous area. We decided about patches for replanting according to both land use designation and forest physiology. And we do aim to increase variation in canopy cover all around the coniferous area. Natural values are protected within this management plan. The main natural values are dwarf shrubland, endangered plant species, blooming patches, and nests of raptors. And there's more. Okay. and the last one, the last example is the community forest, and I will just mention that they will be planned together with the communities and for them. So this is just a summary. So I explained how we are planning the planning process, and we move from the preliminary analysis. We are defining the highlights of the forest vision. Here in Yatir, it is the Israel's afforestation heritage and the important contribution for research, together with other values that we try to balance in one plan. Thanks.
Historically, we don't really have pines, and it creates all sorts of problems like the pine deserts. It means a lot doesn't really grow under them. And I get the need and the desire to preserve the forest as it is, but it also causes us a lot of problems. So how do we tackle that, and even if there is an attempt to do something?
Okay, so I expected this question. I'm an ecologist myself, and I dealt with this question all over the process. So ecology is an issue, but there are many ecological services that the forests provide. And we got this, we didn't plant this forest, but we got it as a present from the pioneers. And I don't think it is an ecological tool to cut all the trees. In Israel, for those of you who are not from Israel, it is a huge battle between organizations, whether the plantations are good or bad, in Yatir especially, but I don't think it is relevant because it is not ecological to cut all the forest. And I will mention another thing. We have many research and monitoring, long-term monitoring plans of different ecological values. And for example, the raptors that were mentioned, we do see raptors nesting on the mature pine trees. The ecosystem is developing. It is true that the pines are not native, but they provide various ecosystem services, and the ecosystem is developing above them and together with them. So this is my question, my answer. Okay.
Thank you, Shani. In the last decade, we had in Yatir a few mortality events, and the expectation is for warming and even drying. How does your plan cope with these risks?
Oh. Okay, so when we analyzed the forest physiology, we were aware of these drought events. The drought events opened mainly the valleys within the forest, so we know that the valleys are less proper for the pines, and we will not replant in areas that are not suitable, that are not a good habitat. But we are not expecting a collapse. This is the bottom line. So we will see in the next few years what will happen. But currently there is a gradual decrease, but very, very low and very in patches, in very small patches of trees.
So thank you. If I understand correctly, the map that you showed is not the highest resolution of what you're going to do in practice.
No. We have. There is much more details within the plan, but I couldn't get into this.
If there are no more questions, I want to add to Amir. If we go to higher resolution, we use air photo that we know we are familiar with of the stone soil before planting. We use our knowledge from the history of the pines trees talk. As you know, the trees talk, and we are clever now than we much more than we've been 50 years ago. So to summarize this session, thank you, Shani. To summarize this session, I would say thanks to our speakers. So you saw we have a very short time for each one of you to present the knowledge and the experiment that you have in India and in Israel. It's almost impossible to give all the details in such a short time. But I think we only tasted a bit from each of you. And I want to thank you again and remind you our field trip. If you have the choice to join, we will be very happy. So thanks again. Enjoy the rest of the day.